Few manufacturers have gotten more flack for the quality of their builds than Samsung has. Samsung's devices all the way up to the S5 weren't exactly the most fancy-feeling toys. Last year with the S6, Samsung turned all that around. They made a beautiful device, but they had to make a ton of compromises to do so. Well, a lot of those compromises are gone this year with easily one of the most beautiful devices I've ever had the pleasure of holding in my hand. So why don't we stop for a moment, just take a few minutes out of our day, and take a look at the brand new Samsung Galaxy S6s. Oh, no? Oh, it's S7? They just called it an S7? All right, maybe comparing this beautiful little slab of hardware to an iOS device was a little bit much, especially knowing my audience, but it is definitely a more iterative model this year than we're used to seeing. It definitely is the S model, you know? But it's a damn good iteration. They really nailed it on the hardware this time around. The rounded back from the Note line from last year is on both devices, and this time the Edge has a little bit more to it than just that rounded edge. It's got 600 extra milliamp hours on the battery and a slightly larger display, making for a slightly larger device as well, making it just a little bit taller at 8 millimeters. At this point, the Edge model is so good that it really feels like the flagship. The S7 kind of feels a little bit sad compared to the Edge. I think and I hope that next year we only see this one. Both devices are now super comfortable to hold in the hand. I keep doing this with them. I keep just rolling them in my hand because it feels so good to hold them. As great as the build is, there's still one thing that I cannot understand why Samsung is doing, and that is the recent and back button. Please just work with me, Samsung. Put the buttons where I think they're gonna be. That's where every other device has them, and I get that you have people using your devices who've had your devices for years and years, and switching might bother them. You've got a bunch of grandfathered users to worry about, but just stop. Minor niggles aside, this is easily just some of the best hardware I've ever held in my entire life. I keep holding it in my hand and just rolling it. It's smooth and it's premium and it's got a heft to it and it's got a strong build. And it's got all of the form of the S6 from last year without sacrificing the function of the S5 from the year prior. And what I mean by that is IP68 water resistance. Here, let me show you. The S7 is not just the best pool buddy because of its water resistance. It's also got easily the best display in the class when it comes to outdoor visibility and color reproduction. Samsung has nailed their panels for years now, and this is just no exception. It's really simple. If you want the best screen, you get a Samsung device. That's really all there is to it. One more thing, I don't think this is a drawback necessarily, but there's no USB-C here, just micro. I imagine that's probably to work with Gear VR without having to support a different port entirely, but I don't really miss it all that much here. I'm really happy to have wireless charging back, especially coming from a Nexus 6P. And to be perfectly honest with you, I did not plug either of these devices in once the entire time I used them. Just wireless charging the entire time. Oh, and that SD card slot is back. The battery life on both devices was perfectly fine. I think the Edge has a little bit more of a punch in it thanks to that extra 600 milliamp hours, but overall, both devices really did not have a problem making it through an entire day of moderate to heavy usage. So I play a ton of games, so for me, I'm using it a lot, especially with the screen on. So at the end of the day, I'm looking at somewhere between 20 and 30% with about 2 to 3 hours worth of screen on time. It's certainly enough to make it comfortably through the end of the day, but don't expect to leave it unplugged once you go to sleep. The day-to-day usage was very good. It was definitely fast, but I did not feel like I was using the fastest phone on the market, and both David and I both said that the S6 and S7 feel surprisingly similar in terms of speed and performance, and a lot of that probably comes down to Marshmallow sort of being a great equalizer. The other thing worth mentioning here is that there are actually two separate variants of the S line around the world. The US is the only country that gets the Snapdragon 820 under the hood, while the rest of the world gets the Exynos 8890, which is Samsung's own silicon. In our testing, I actually did experience a slightly faster, snappier device on the Exynos powered model. The reason for the geographical disparity is anyone's guess, But yeah, I did have a slightly stutterier device with the Snapdragon 820 under the hood. And now for the software. Yes, TouchWiz has definitely taken a step back, a big step back over the years, and here it's relatively inoffensive, though there is a ton of bloat, especially if you're on Verizon. It's definitely better than it ever has been, but overall, it just feels like too much. It feels like Samsung has this overbearing watchful eye over you as you use a Galaxy device, making sure that you're using it the best way you can and having the best opportunity to do all the fun stuff that your device can do now. If that sounds awesome to you, then I guess you'll be fine, but TouchWiz just hasn't faded away enough, for me anyway, to put Samsung in the same category as Motorola when it comes to what they're doing in terms of software. That said, I did happen to find a new feature that did wind up being really helpful. Game Tools will allow you to take a screenshot, record your games, and it'll make sure that any of your incoming notifications don't disturb you while you're playing. Plus, the coolest part is you can actually minimize the title that you're in the middle of playing and give you a little chat head sort of a thing that you can float around on your screen, get something else done, answer a text message, and then bounce right back into the game without it ever leaving memory. It's actually really nifty. Look, the moral of the story here is that nothing that Samsung is doing here in terms of software is particularly egregious. It's all fine, it's just a bit much for me. Samsung has been positively wrecking it in the camera department lately, and this thing is really no exception. I did not think it was possible for a mobile device to take photos in such low light, but this one positively can, and it is in almost every way an upgrade to the camera from last year's S6. Thanks to a smaller count, larger size megapixel arrangement on the sensor, you're gonna get a ton more light on your photos, and all of your low light photos are basically all gonna come out. Yes, they're not gonna be amazing, they're not gonna be blown up huge, they're gonna be pretty grainy, and you know, they're low light. But you know what? If you're worried about missing a shot, you don't ever have to worry about missing one in low light again. All right, that was a really fun pool day with you guys. Thanks for hanging out with me. Look, the S7 is definitely the best hardware you can buy on the market for your money right now. The question is, how much money do you have? If you're looking to spend $700 or $800 respectively on a device of this nature, then you're gonna be thrilled. It literally is the best hardware you can buy. Best screen, best camera, best build, whatever. It's a great phone. My issue is I'm not sure that there's a place for this category, or at least that this category isn't shrinking by the day. As more phones start to come out in the $400 price point, and even phones like the Nexus 6P off contract for $500, $600, or even less if you can get them on sale, I feel less and less compelled to get the bleeding edge device because honestly, I don't really feel like I'm gonna miss that much if I just go back to my 6P right now. So despite how great this device is, I think I just gotta give it a wait. When you couple that with the idea that you don't have any concept of when you're going to get device updates from Samsung, it really makes this a difficult recommendation for me to make. For me, as a reviewer, sure, I'm going to keep using it, but my daily driver is still my Nexus 6P. Thank you guys so much for watching the S7 review. This took me a while. This is my first big review here on Android Police, so I really hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you didn't, please let me know that too. I really want to hear from you. Let me know in the comments what you think, not just about the video, but about the S7 too. If you got one, if you're getting one, if you're excited for one, if you're disappointed about something, or even more importantly, if you're dropping a Nexus device for a Samsung device, I really want to know why down below in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, you can hit like. If you want to see more, you can hit subscribe. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. Be kind to one another, and I'll catch you in the next video.